not by proudly or anxiously trying to run the parade. And where does that leave our proud Jewish claim of having a corner on God? Also canceled. God is the God of outsider non-Jews as well as insider Jews. How could it be otherwise, since there is only one God? God sets right all who welcome his action and enter into it, both those who follow our religious system and those who have never heard of our religion. But by shifting our focus from what we do to what God does, don't we cancel out all our careful keeping of the rules and ways God commanded? Not at all. What happens, in fact, is that by putting that entire way of life in its proper place, we confirm it.
You're listening to Insight for Living. To study the Bible with Chuck Swindoll, be sure to download his Searching the Scriptures studies by going to insightforliving.ca/studies. And now the message from Chuck titled, Mr. Smith, Meet Your Substitute.
When Peter Marshall preached, people listened. Even though they didn't believe what he said, even though they said they weren't interested, there was just something about his, winsome and contagious style that made it impossible for you not to listen. Even when he became the chaplain of the United States Senate, just his prayers became legendary. A book was made of the prayers alone. Seemed as though everywhere Marshall preached, crowds gathered. Even if it was raining and snowing outside, the balconies would be full and aisles at times packed with people and folks willing to stand and listen as he spoke the words of God. Now, I think it had to go deeper than just his Scottish brogue. That would work for a while. And it certainly was more than just a charismatic personality that would win you. Interestingly, the man had a way with women as well as men. He was admired by both. A man's man. And yet, such a sensitive touch. At times, you would swear he was more a poet than a preacher. He wasn't extemporaneous. To the surprise of many, Marshall read his sermons. But I suppose if you could read like Peter Marshall, that was okay. You could break that rule. Perhaps Frank Mead, in an old article out of Christian Herald, said it best. What Peter Marshall says, you never forget. But it wasn't how he said it, so much as what he says, that goes in like a knife. He takes you out on the road to Galilee and makes you think you belong there, and then brings you back sharply to Main Street. He never preaches over your head. Now, that might be the secret of the man's life. The ability to go much deeper, but he was always cognizant of the audience. And he himself, from a poverty background, understood the common man and woman. And therefore he spoke in plain terms, colorful to be sure, and dramatic at times, but you always connected with what Peter Marshall was saying. Listen, for example, to one of those many great talks he gave. Our country is full of Joneses, and they all have problems of one kind or another. All God's children got trouble these days. The church has always contended that God can solve these problems through the individual's personal fellowship with a living Lord. Let's put the question bluntly as Mr. Jones would put it. Can you and I really have communion with Christ as we would with earthly friends? Can we know personally the same Jesus whose words are recorded in the New Testament, who walked the dusty trails of Galilee 2,000 years ago? I don't mean can we treasure his words or try to follow his example or imagine him. I mean, is he really alive? Can we actually meet him, commune with him, ask